Hi, welcome to the White Stripe Podcast.
So I was running and then I started the guitar solo na. Sumabit yung guitar cable, so it pulled me back. Slipped, as in yung slip like in the cartoons when someone steps on a banana peel.
If anybody is going to remember anything from watching my videos, I really hope it's not hey Janine Novella here.
The day before the Alaskan cruise, Alex goes, okay, here's the files. By the way, they have a due date. They need it in like 2 days. I'm like, I'm on a boat.
If the Lakers don't make it to the playoffs, who are you gonna root for?
Not the Clippers. Anybody but the Clippers. I'm totally opposite you.
Is being cancelled online something to be afraid of?
In a sense, of course, it depends on what you're doing.
For sure,
like
for sure.
to what degree. But
Yeah.
I think in one way or another, we're gonna get cancelled by people because as a human, you are gonna commit mistakes.
What's a band that surprised you during an interview?
Four of Spades. You know, we knew that they were young and we knew that they were going to be a little unexpected, but ang labo nila, like in the best way.
There's this pageant in our school called Mr. SISC. It was wild, bro. I'm not gonna lie. I enjoyed that feeling so much because you're not so used to like your classmates cheering you.
Exactly.
Your barkada na bros going all out to cheer you. So I enjoy that.
Noong time na yon, people got really mad kasi for the longest time, there was this love team that was being built up. So yun, kaya they were so loved. So you know, when I entered the picture, they painted me as the bad guy.
Manila Magic is still alive as it ever was. People just don't know it.
Emotionally, I'm a mess.
What's it like being the inspiration to a hit song?
I was like, that loaded for a while. I need my royalties. I'm kidding.
I have a podcast with a homie. We're called The Ecosystem. His name is Kiko, and we have a really funny podcast that talk a lot about circumcision. So if you want to go ahead and listen to that, I have a lot of funny circumcision-like stories. So make sure you check it out. And yeah.
You know what? Like, it was so funny because when you guys were talking about that story, I was like, yes, relatable content right here. Hey. Try to do the vlog thing. Welcome to the White Stripe Podcast. If you're listening to this or watching it on YouTube, you'd know that this show just turned 1. If you've been following me for a while, you'd know that this isn't my first podcast, but it's the first one I've done on my own. I'm going to be jumping into a Q&Trey. After that, I'll be talking about a reflection on the past year. So I asked people on Instagram what they would like to hear from me. And I'm just going to jump into it. So the first one is, do you ever get interrupted by the noise of your neighbors? So if I'm recording a podcast, it depends what time of day. But if it's at daytime, like today, like right now, there's often like a bunch of birds like outside my window, and they're just chirping away. They're just like, they're so loud, it bleeds into the microphone. You can really hear it if you really try to. I try as much as possible to like edit it to where it's not very noticeable, but if you really try, you can hear some episodes do have that sound. If you're talking about the neighbors like around me, not really, no. Other than the birds and the dog, I don't really get disturbed by the outside of this house when I record. Next one is top 5 guilty pleasures. So I'm going to say a bunch of things, but I wouldn't say that I feel guilty about it, but people usually categorize it as a guilty pleasure, or it's just something that I like to do that I don't often talk about. Top 5 guilty pleasures, number 1 would definitely be like ensemble comedies. I love ensemble comedies with like, I don't know, there's something about it. I love going to that world. I love groups of friends, you know what I mean? So if you're talking about like Friends, How I Met Your Mother, New Girl, Good Place, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. There's just something about these kinds of shows that connect with me as a person. Like if you know Wanda from WandaVision, like she's just it to like, you know, escape from her reality and into that. And that's something that I also like to do in a different way. Because I love character dynamics, I love character growth, and not just plot-driven stuff, but character-driven stuff. So I'll talk about that also again later, but definitely that's one of them. The second one would be like One Direction, definitely. I keep forgetting this. I watched One Direction when they were here in the Philippines. I was with Rico, Thea, and like a bunch of other friends, and when they came here to promote 4, and it was in Mall of Asia. So that's definitely a guilty pleasure. Yeah, I forgot about that. But yeah, I did watch them. Another one would definitely be like, I have days where I only listen to like pop punk, Simple Plan, and My Chemical Romance, and even like the Click 5. I don't know exactly where you'd place them, but that kind of like ish. And it's fun. I love doing it. But I don't talk about it often. Let's see what else. I don't know. I'll think about it. Anyway, I gave you 3, and I think that's good for now. Favorite K-dramas. So I have 2 in mind for very different reasons. So the first one is Itaewon Class, only because it was the first K-drama that I've ever watched, and I watched it in the near the beginning of the lockdown, the very first lockdown. So to me, this was like I was trapped in my room, and I had the opportunity to be transported into this new world, into this story that I absolutely like fell in love with. The dynamic of him with his dad and the whole revenge and all that stuff. It was really interesting to me. I loved it. Personally, I was really happy with the ending. I know a lot of people wanted it to go the other way, but I was really happy with it. It's the ending that I wanted, so I was really happy. The other one would be Reply 1988. Because of the characters. I love the characters of Reply 1988. So it goes in line with the guilty pleasures part. Because in the guilty pleasures, I explained that I like groups of friends and dynamics and watching their stories and like little stories per week. And then if you put it all together, it's one big story. And I loved it. So much drama, so much dysfunction. But, every week they'd be fine. And I love that. The next one is types of girls you dated. If you ask the people around me, they would say introverted but charming. Like that's the general gist of it. I would say I'm not necessarily looking for that. It's just the track record kind of shows that. And if you're in tune with feelings, because like that's something that I kind of look for. The next question is an ulam you can eat for an entire month, every day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If it's just taste, I would never do this because it's so bad for you. But if it's just taste, it would be a bacon, eggs, and rice. I love bacon, eggs, and rice. So you have rice and then bacon, crispy bacon, and then an easy sunny side egg, or even 2 easy sunny side eggs. Mix all that up. My favorite. So good. The next question is, how do we know the boundaries between working on something and taking a pause? That's a great question. I'm somebody that I like to work on something, and when I start, I want to finish it, or I want to be close to finishing it, or I at least want to hit something. Like a goal has to be hit by the time that I'm finished. That's what I would do. I put certain benchmarks where I can rest, where I can take a pause. And I don't know if that's exactly what you're asking about, whether it's relationships or whether it's work. Because if it's relationships, that completely depends on what you want. Actually, no, even in work, it depends on what you want. What are you looking for? What are you trying to do, right? What are you trying to hit with this? If you don't feel like it will hit that thing, if the track record shows that you're probably not going to hit that thing, maybe take a pause, rest, reflect, make a decision. I think that's the most important part, to be honest with you. A lot of us don't make that decision. We're afraid to make that decision. Because when we make a decision, that's when the consequences start. That's when we start thinking about the consequences and what might happen because you decided it. You know what I mean? It's your decision. You have to deal with it. Other than letting things happen to you and you react to it. Very different stuff. So I would say that work on something the best you can, as excellently as you can. And if it doesn't work out, if it's not working out, take a pause, take a breather, decide. Will you let it go or will you persevere? Neither is wrong. Well, it depends on the context, but like generally, neither is wrong. You can do both. Of course, for example, if you're married, that's a different story than if you're like starting out dating. If you're talking about a relationship, then that's very, very different. But I would say do the best you can. Don't be afraid to pause. But pause intentionally so that you can move forward in whatever direction you choose after that. Next question. Would you ever ask to date someone who has already turned you down once? I don't think there's anything necessarily inherently wrong with this. There's nothing wrong with trying again, but there's also wisdom in it. I would never say never, because you never quite know. Because you don't know. You never know. I don't think one rejection equals forever. Because a lot of things play into it. It depends on who you were at the time, who she was at the time. It depends on the circumstances where you were there. What if you ask somebody out and it's like first year college, and then you ask them out again and they've been working for 3 years. Very different circumstances. So I would not say one rejection equals to forever. Although it depends, because sometimes the fit's just really not good. I think that after a rejection, you have to let it go. That's very different. I think that if I were to be rejected and just be still obsessed with this girl, there's something that I need to change. But if you're asking like someone rejected me and years passed by and there's a new set of circumstances and like there's a certain connection or a click, why not try? You never know. So I would say never in that situation. I won't say never. Because you never know. So the answer to be, would I ever? Yes, I would. When does inspiration literally hit you the most in a day? So inspiration to create for me usually happens either at 2 p.m. until like 5 p.m. So that's one window. And then I have another one at like 10 to like 2 a.m. How many businesses / hobbies are you doing now? I have one main business that like generates my money, my income. So that's one. I have the podcast. It doesn't generate my income, but it's what I do. It's part of my everyday, my every week routine. And then on the side, I have music management. I'm starting it up again. I haven't done it in a while. I don't know how many you'd place that in, but that's what I'm doing. So, last question for the Q&Trey is this: why did you start a podcast? It's something that I've been wanting to do for a while. If I was looking at my Instagram a few weeks ago, I was going through archives, going through like different years. So I went through 2018, 2019. In 2018, I have a few posts where I tried to start a podcast. I found an old microphone, a USB microphone. I found an old USB microphone, and I tried to start a podcast, but I realized that I had a really hard time doing it. I remember, so I wrote down what I wanted to say. Like I had this whole because I was alone. So I had this whole thing where I tried to record alone, and this is my first time trying it. I've never done it before. So I'm used to writing. So I wrote down like an article type of episode to do. And I remember this episode is about starting something. It's like challenging people to start that something new. It was the first episode of this new podcast. So I was like, yeah, I want to do it. I have no idea what it was going to be called. I wrote it all down. I connected the microphone to the computer and I recorded it. Guess how long it was? It was 4 minutes long. I wanted to do like a 20-minute thing, at least. But it was 4 minutes. And I was just like, man, this is hard. This is really, really hard. So that's one reason why I never ended up doing it, because I wasn't happy with the 4 minutes and the amount of effort that I took to make those 4 minutes. So I really wanted to start 2018. I tried again in 2019. That didn't work out. And then late 2019, I was with my buddy Don, and we started Bente. If you listen to the first few episodes of Bente, you'll barely hear me. You'll hear me laughing and stuff, but like, you won't really get to know me until like later episodes. And I credit Don a lot for that show, because he was really the one who was able to set it up. He was the one who was really able to give me confidence, because I've never done anything before. I remember I auditioned to be part of a student jock program when I was in high school, and I was rejected. They told me that I could be part of like this other team or whatever, but they never contacted me again. So I remember after that, I was just like, yeah, not for me. I never knew that podcasting would come to the picture. I never knew that I'd love podcasting. And that's the funny part, because with the radio thing, I didn't even really listen to the radio that often. I wasn't even really in the car that often. And it's not like radio is something I was really excited for. I just wanted to try it out. And I was really excited. Didn't work out. Okay, fine. Done. Gone. And podcasting came along a few years later. And that became the thing that I loved to listen to the most when I was commuting or when I was on the way to school or if I was driving. There's always a podcast. 2016 onwards, it was almost always a podcast. And I had no idea what I wanted to do or to talk about. And then Don came along, and because we'd always have these great conversations. And I loved talking to him, and he was really funny as well. And we just had this dynamic, and it clicked right away. And I remember when we started out recording for the first time, Don was the one giving me tips. He was the one saying, because he had a bit of like student experience. I had zero experience in it. So I had no idea how to talk to a microphone. I had no idea how to speak or in what tone I wanted to do it at. We just did it. And I learned so much along the way. So I credit a lot of it to Don, even though she's not part of the production for this one. So much that I've learned and I've observed came from him. And Bente's not dead. It's far from that. So why did I start a podcast? It's basically, I love the format. I love conversations. So that's Q&Trey for today. And I'm thank you so much to everybody again who's ever been a part of the show. I love answering your questions. I love going through these different scenarios and situations and all that stuff. So I hope that you got something out of this. I reflect back and I'm really thankful for... I remember that there were times that... There's so many firsts. There was the first episode. There's the first time I asked a stranger. I remember I was really nervous about that. I think that was Rain Matienzo. We've never met prior to the podcast. I just wanted to have her on. I saw her content. She seemed like really fun to talk to. Messaged her. That was the first time I talked to somebody that I haven't met prior. And I've done a few of that since. And they're some of my favorites. But they're also the most nerve-wracking for me. Because I don't know you. But thank you for coming on. Thank you for the 1 year. Really appreciate you. Thank you for listening to this episode. I have 2 episodes lined up for you guys. So just a bit of teaser. One's a multimedia practitioner. And the other one is a director. So we talked about their stories. We talked about their crafts. And their crafts, is that right? Or is it craft? But we talk about their craft. Those come next week and the week after that. So please follow and subscribe. Follow on Spotify and subscribe on YouTube. So please do that. It helps out so much with the show, with the channel. And again, I am Trey, White Stripe Podcast, Turns 1. Thank you so much to everyone, to all the guests, to all the listeners, the tens of thousands that have listened on Spotify and YouTube. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Follow us on Instagram. That is at WhiteStripePH on Instagram. So please check that out. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter as well at Remulla. I will see you next week.